Hello, welcome to Patrice's Projects. Today we're going to be building the front facing, which is the west wall of the garden shed. And that one has the two doors and the bigger window. On the plan, I don't think I left enough space for one of the doors, maybe both, because I've never done door jambs before, and I'm really concerned I didn't leave enough space. But my foundation is done, so I don't have any more space to go out. The window takes a certain amount of space, the doors take a certain amount of space, and then I have to have enough room on the far side to be able to fit the lawnmower and barbecue. So it has to be at least 4 feet wide, and that's with them like right up against each other, and I think that might be what happens. We'll see. So anyway, let's get started on this. I'm going to do the cutting. I'm going to show you the plan real quick, and let's get started. Here's the west-facing wall, and it's got two doors. One of them is, how wide was that? 32 inches wide, and the other one's 24, and I've got a 36 by 40 inch window over here. And I've got a slope of 3 to 12, so it rises 3 feet for every 12. So I was doing like a 2 to 10, but that's not a proper pitch for me to be able to use my new, but that's not a proper pitch for me to be able to use my new little square. So I'll show you how I'm going to make the angles using this baby right here. I'm really happy about trying it out. So anyway, the headers here, you see all three different sizes. This is just 2x2 sandwiched together around OSB board. This, I had some pieces of wood. I scavenged some wood as much as I could, and my husband didn't want a bunch of just junk, so we ended up buying almost everything. But anyway, I was able to scavenge a couple, I think they're 2x8s for here, and then 2x6s for here. So that's why I have headers of all different sizes. And my height over here, this board right here, is 9 foot 6.5 inches. The total height is 9 foot 9 3/4 at this point, but it's going to actually end up a touch taller after I give the 4-inch overhang for the roof. And my shortest wall here is 7 foot 1.5 inches at the highest, and I don't need it real high because I'm not real tall, so that'll be just right. This section over here, 1.5 feet or so back, I'm going to use clear corrugated polycarbonate roofing, and I'm going to have it so that the grooves go down this way so that we have good drainage, and the rest is going to be shingled. So let's get started on this wall. It's always best to cut off the very ends of your wood to make sure that it's a nice flush cut. It may have a little angle to it, you never know. This looks pretty good to me. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it. And this is this piece right here that runs up right next to the back wall. And I'm going to do the front and back at the same time, so I know that I'm going to have the outer studs and also cut the sill plate, or the top plate and the bottom plate at the same time, so that I know that at least they're starting out with equal boards. So that's what I'm going to start doing right now. Now here's one reason why I'm so happy to have this new square. What I had done is I flushed up the other ends. I marked my mark at the higher point of what will be an angle down this way. And with this square, to get the angle of 3, which would be a 3 to 12, 3 foot rise over 12 foot length run, you put your square, and then this is the pivot point. It says pivot right there. You just put your square right on your line. There's your pivot point right there, and then it has different numbers down here for common top cuts. This is the one I'm using, not the hip and valley. So it has 1, 2, 3. The 1 and 2 are covered. 3, 4, 5. So you just pivot until you get to the right on the 3 like that, and that's your angle. And it'll make it so much easier because there's so many angles I need to do on this project. And so I already marked over here, pivot to 3, and I don't have to do a whole bunch of guessing or measurements. I just pivot like that, and I do my cut right on that line. There. Alrighty. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these two, and then when I get more cut, I'm going to lay it out on the foundation there, and then we'll get started. Today what I'm working on is the headers for the doors. I'll be making the one for the window. And the headers are the area right above the doorway that bears all the weight for that gap. The window one, though, I can only fit a 2x4 header in there, but I'm sure it'll be fine. And I'll show you what I'm doing to make the headers, and these are actually proper headers. So I've got 2x6s, and I cut them to length, and between you see this red thing. That's this OSB right here, and this is 1/2 inch. It's thinner than the floor here. See, the floor is like 5/8 inch or something like that, and then this one's only 1/2 inch. See the difference? And the reason you put that is because a 2x4 is really only 1.5 inches this way and 3.5 that way. So in order to get the 3.5 thickness to set properly with the studs, you add this 1/2 inch OSB in there. And then you put in 2 or 3 nails at least 3 locations on one side, and what I'm going to be doing is putting between those, there'll be 3 there, 3 there, and 3 at the end, so I'm going to go between with 3. And that should do fine. So I'm working on those today because I want to get my headers in place before I set all the studs, because I really need to have it exactly straight, because the windows, I'm not giving much room, because my windows aren't proper windows. They're just the slider part in some window that someone had taken apart and left out for free. So I took them. So that's what I'm using. So that's what I'm working on today. And I also am working on the front wall itself. There's the angle for the roof. And I've got the outer frame done. And in order for me to proceed, I need these headers. We're making good headway on this wall so far. I've gotten this window area all finished. I've gotten 2 cripples put in up here. And I've gotten this whole area here done. This header is ready to be secured in. However, I did make a mistake. Oh, also the scrap wood that I had talked about before didn't work. I mentioned I used 2x6s to make those headers. It's because the scrap wood was so incredibly hard, and also the one that I thought I was putting here wasn't long enough, so I had to use the wood I was going to use over here, and it was just a pain to try and cut it lengthwise to make it nice and straight, because it's so old and so hard. So when I went to put it together, I was just bending nails. I said, forget it, let's use some new wood. Anyway, so I've gotten all of this area here done. I'm up to securing in this king stud right here, and then this header. But when I was framing in this doorway, and this is actually my mistake from right here, I had measured this distance wrong. Granted, this one's going to be a 1/2 inch higher than this one because I'm going to have carpet on this side. That's going to be bare subfloor. I forgot to subtract out this 2x4 here, because when you're done building the wall and then you stand it up, you take a saw and you cut out this piece of 2x4, and that's where you'd put your threshold, or in my case I'm going to just find the thinnest strip that I can to secure the carpet. Unless I leave this area blank, then I'll put a little threshold. But I had already framed this. This is already secured in. So I had this 1.5 inches too much space here. So I took some of the scrap wood, I cut a piece to go in up here, and it fit in nice and snug. Cheyenne hammered it in for me, and then she pointed out a gap over here when I was securing in this king stud. Thankfully, I still haven't secured it up here, so let me show you real quick. So here it is. This is the header over the smaller door. This is the small piece of wood, scrap lumber that I had scavenged, and I fitted in there really nice and tight. And this gap actually appeared bigger yesterday before I started pounding on this. That gap cannot be there, so I need to pry, because this is, like I said, this was nice and tight. We had to kind of tap it in there. So today I'm starting off with a pry bar. So I'll be getting that off of there, fixing the length, closing that gap, because I can still, thankfully, I have already put this onto this. So that's locked on, but that isn't yet. So there's one nail down there holding it on. That's not a problem. I have enough room up here to work and close that gap. So that's what I'm starting my day off with. I hope your day's starting a little better. Okay, the little problem is fixed. The gap is closed. And let me go over real quick what I did. Okay, here's my 2x2 header over the window with the OSB sandwiched in between. Secured on with 4 nails on each side. I've got the cripples in, which are the short studs above and below windows and above the door as well. So I have those secured in at the ends and then toe-nailed in. Those are very difficult in limited space. I'm not good at it anyway. And here on this window, because I've talked before about how I'm a little short on length to properly get to the 4 feet I need on the lawnmower side. Sorry if I'm moving too quickly with the camera. So this one does not have the jack studs. So I'm just hoping that those 4 nails on each side are sufficient. They should be, and it's also being held up somewhat by that. So these, however, are properly done. I've got my king stud, runs the length. Got my jack studs on either side underneath the header holding it up. And over here I've got 2 king studs next to each other because I wanted the extra strength for my doorways. And here you see this gap. That's just because I haven't yet hammered that over. So that's my next step, is securing this king stud. But before you put things next to each other like that, you have to make sure that you've got your headers secured in. Because my daughter was saying, well, why do we have to do that before attaching the header? And I said, because I'd never be able to get those nails in otherwise. So we've got those all secured in. And now what I'm doing is I've got my jack studs all measured and ready to put in. I've got this king stud, and I've got the king stud for the other side all measured and ready to be attached to the header there. You see the other jack stud is measured, ready to go in. So after we get this other king stud pushed up there, I think that line's a little bit off at the top, but as long as I make sure that my opening is the right distance apart, and I know everything else is already straight, how it should be, I'm going to attach this king stud to the header, and then put in my jacks, and make sure that I have the right distance here at the bottom before attaching these down here, and this wall will be done. Okay, so I've gotten my third wall all laid out. I've measured from that end every 16 inches on center so that when I lay the 4x8 sheathing, it'll fit just right. However, I did make the mistake already once of forgetting to add in 3.5 inches because this wall will butt up against the other wall. So there's going to be the other wall going this way, like this, and this wall is going to come up to it like that. So I have to add in that 3.5 inches right there. So on that end, I have added in the 3.5 inches, and then 16 inches in is the first stud, and then 32, etc. So I've already laid them out, cut them to length, and now I'm just putting them in. I drilled pilot holes because this is really incredibly hard to do with 3-inch nails. I'm going to do something that I have actually made the mistake of doing a few times, and it's really disappointing when you do a whole video only to look at it and find out you had it on time lapse, but this time it's purposeful, so here we go. Okay, the reason that I put my feet up there is to block so that I have something solid to pound against without having the whole thing shift over. And also, I can hold my 2x4. See, this one is sitting a little bit low, so when I'm standing there, I can hold it up with my feet. So let me show you how I do that. So I get it flush up there where I want it, and I hold it tight. I have my boots all the way up against it. And just before it goes in, I want to check again, make sure it's at the right place. Right between the two marks. Actually, there should only be one mark and the X, and right up against there. Ta-da! It's in. It did slip a little bit, but it's not as low as it would have been. Oh, the sun caught up with me. I was trying to race the sun and see if I could actually get those nails in before I set the sun. It didn't work. So anyway, I'm just going to repeat the process on the other side, and basically this wall would be done. However, I'm going to have this 10-foot cabinet that you'll see later all the way across the length of it. So I'm going to put a few support cross beams in there, and actually I'm going to put a lot of support cross beams in there, so you'll see that later on. So there's how I do the walls. This is a simple wall, that's why I did this one. I could do it quick and easy. Well, I need to get busy with the other side before the sun catches up over there too, so this is how I do it. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, or just want to say hi, please put it in the comments down below. Subscribe and keep track of how my progress is going. So I guess I will see you next video when we're ready to put the walls up. I'll see you then. Bye.